D-Lo 404 boxing. All right, y'all. I'm gonna get my piece on this, and I'm gonna move on. So Terence Bud Crawford came out, made his tweet last night after Jermell's fight, basically saying, you know, nights like this or fights like this, something like that, to that effect, or why you're not pound for pound, sir. Now, do I agree with that statement? I'll get back to you on that. Let me just say this. We know that there's been some mention of Terence Crawford and Mel fighting each other. So, you know, there's that. And at the same time, we know Terence Crawford has been a mainstay on the pound for pound list for the last several years. We know Jermell Crawford has been a blaring omission on the pound for pound list his whole career, basically. Lately, let me just say this. I feel like Jermell Charlo should already be on the pound for pound list before last night. Even with the loss to Harrison, I felt like, and I don't feel like it was a robbery. I felt like he lost to Harrison. But the fact that he was able to clean it up and go back and get that win, to me, even told me more so that he belongs on the pound for pound list. And pound for pound isn't always about being undefeated either. So there's that part of it. I believe Jermell should already be pound for pound. Now, that's not to say that after a performance like last night, he would stay pound for pound, just because it's just about other guys that are there. And had he lost the fight to Castano, does Castano pop up on pound for pound list? For me, I'm not going to say whether he would or not, but I could say, looking at the pound for pound lists that are out there, the recognized lists like ESPN's list, Ring Magazine's list, I could say that if Castano had won, he would have been on the pound for pound list and Mel would have been gone. Or Castano beat him last night, even though Mel wasn't on the list. Castano might have popped up. That's just how it works. Now, with that being said, I feel like, you know, Terence Crawford saying it when he said it probably wasn't in the best taste. Probably wasn't, you know what I'm saying, the most respectful thing in the world. But I don't necessarily look to these fighters to be respectful toward one another when it comes to certain things, especially when they're looking at each other as rivals. Now, there are some things I do expect them to hold themselves to, and there are certain lines I expect them not to cross. But it's boxing, and we've seen some of everything in boxing. Now, for the statement that he made, I will say this. I do agree that if you are supposed to be, if you want to be a top 10 fighter in the sport of boxing, top 10 pound for pound, although the lists are subjective, you have to beat the Brian Castanos. You have to be able to pull yourself through those situations and pull out a win. You know, no knock on Castano. It's just that if you really are top 10 pound for pound, you find a way to win that fight. I think that's a fair assessment. I say you look at Bud Crawford, his fight for undisputed with Ndongo, he can't pull a draw out of that fight and expect to be considered pound for pound. You look at the fight with Mean Machine, who, you know what I'm saying, if you look at, you know, where he was at that time as a, you know, guy that some people knew of and had some respect for, but for the masses, they didn't really understand who he was or what he brought to the table. Terence Crawford had a rough spot in that fight, or had some moments in that fight where, you know, it was kind of, you know what I'm saying, kind of sketchy, but he found a way to pull it out and show his mettle, show his class. That's what you expect when a guy's pound for pound. But that doesn't mean pound for pound fighters don't have off nights, and that don't mean that a guy can't be pound for pound, get knocked off the list, and then fight his way back on the list. But as far as the statement Bud made, I do agree that, you know, if we're going to say that this guy, or any guy, including Crawford or whoever else, is pound for pound, those are the type of moments that they got to rise to the occasion and get the win. So I do agree with that sentiment. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, my feelings about whether or not he should have said it, how he said it, the context in which he said it, all that, I'm not even getting into all that. I'm just talking about how I feel about the actual statement that was made. You know, because I don't know what his feelings were going into it. I don't know what his motive was. All I can look at is what he said, and I'm looking at and listening to the reaction around, you know, around YouTube and other boxing forums and things like that, and give my take on it. And let me just say one more thing. For Bud Crawford, stuff like this is not going to be well received, because we're still waiting to see who you're going to fight, what your moves are gonna be. So of course, anything you say about criticizing somebody else, any kind of critiquing, is going to be looked at and taken a certain way. You know what I'm saying? People are like, okay, well, what are you doing? What are you doing next? Or, you know, what have you done for us lately? That's kind of the attitude they're gonna have. But that's all I gotta say on it. D-Lo 404 Boxing. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.